What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Air, the new film starring Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, directed by Ben Affleck, about Nike's pursuit and, of course, successful signing of Michael Jordan to a signature shoe deal, which, of course, changed the lives of everyone involved. This is a new film, the first film from Damon and Affleck's Ars Equity production company project that they've started. You know, their new way of producing and financing films in the new world we live in terms of the film landscape. This is the first film from that group. Amazon is involved with this, notably giving it a full theatrical release before sending it to Prime. Very exciting. Yeah, this is another great film from Ben Affleck, who's really accomplished himself as a director at this stage. It's pretty undeniable. And I think it's just an absolutely great time featuring excellent acting performances and a really compelling story. So even if you're not a sneakerhead, this is still a movie for you. If you don't even have to be a big basketball fan, I think it's just very dramatic and very enjoyable. You know, Matt Damon, of course, plays Sonny Vaccaro, who was at Nike and one of the people who had the real conviction to pursue signing Michael Jordan. That's kind of what the story is about. Ben Affleck plays Phil Knight, the CEO of Nike at the time, founder of Nike, and it's another one of those recent, supporting performances from Ben Affleck where he leans a bit into the camp. It's very similar performance to me to how Ben Affleck was in The Last Duel, a movie that Damon and Affleck wrote, of course, where Affleck is not the star of the show, but he's just kind of stealing all the scenes he is in. And I think it's a great place for Ben to be, as he's seemingly really settled into being a director. But when he still wants to act, these like small little parts for him are really great, and he's quite effervescent as Phil Knight. I really loved him. But yeah, you have Sonny Vaccaro played by Matt Damon, and of course Viola Davis, NBD, is Michael Jordan's mother, Dolores Jordan. And that's kind of like your two big characters. Of course, Jason Bateman is also in the film as a marketing exec at Nike. You have Chris Tucker. You have Chris Messina as David Falk, the NBA super agent who was Jordan's agent. That's kind of the big crew. I believe you have, was it Damon Wayans as a Chris Raveling, who was also involved, as the basketball coach, and sorry, George Raveling. And I think what's kind of interesting about this film, too, the story of it is how this all went down, how Nike was able to land Jordan. And they were, of course, the underdog. That's what's really fun about this movie is Nike was the underdog. They were not a dominant basketball player at all. Of course, Adidas and Converse ran the show at this time. And how this all went down, who had the idea to go after Jordan? Was it Vaccaro? Was it Raveling? Was it a combination of the crew? All of that. There's a bit of a Phil Knight as well. There's a lot of I think people that want to take credit for this, and the movie for its own part at least acknowledges that there's other people's opinions on this. And it's a film that it doesn't really go into like the full extent of Nike history. It's really just about this core story, this foundational moment of Nike and Nike basketball and in Michael Jordan's life. Obviously, if you know anything about this story, Sonny Vaccaro does have a falling out with Nike and Phil Knight, but that's later in the story and is not in this movie. Um, the Michael Jordan, his estate, Michael Jordan, of course, he's still alive, signed off on the telling of this film. He just really wanted to make sure that certain points were in the film. But it is kind of interesting that you have a like POV of the movie presented that Jordan did sign off on. He famously, Affleck and Damon have said this a lot at this point. Jordan wanted Viola Davis to play his mom, which obviously is like asking for the world when it comes to acting and casting, but he was able to pull that off. Um, and of course, Viola Davis, one of, if not the best actor in the world right now, and she's shockingly so tremendous as Dolores Jordan. I think really, I think doing a good job with this role because Air does, I think, a really interesting but smart choice where Michael Jordan isn't really a character in the movie. Like you barely see him, you don't see his face, you see his figure walking with his parents, but he's never really fully present on the screen. Um, the most dramatic stuff in the movie is when Sonny and Dolores are talking face to face or later on the phone. Those are the most dramatic moments and where the best acting is coming from. Of course, the best acting from Davis, but it's not really about Michael's opinions on things. It's really about more about his mother and how she helped drive this potential thing to go down. which is pretty cool. Chris Tucker's character Howard White, that was one of the things that Jordan was like, you have to make sure Howard White is in the film, which is pretty cool. I guess it would have been interesting to have a little bit more of Marlon Wayans as George Raveling, just because George Raveling to this day kind of disputes a lot of the account that's kind of presented here, but the movie at least acknowledges um, the discrepancy here. But ultimately, like I think this is just a really compelling, tight film. It's a lot of walk and talk and in the halls, in the office, but it's an underdog story. It's very relatable to people, and it's really fun to watch these characters win. You know, and also the Viola Davis phone call at the end with Sonny with Matt Damon really hits home the bigger picture that the Jordan family was looking for, where they of course pioneered this athlete equity stake, sales revenue share in the signature shoe, which was completely unheard of in the industry at the time, and how what that does for people. Coming from nothing or coming from less than, of course, the strength of a billion-dollar corporation, for example. So I think all of that's like quite compelling, but the acting is so good, and the story is just really really tight. It's quite enjoyable. Hats off to Damon and Affleck for getting Amazon to release this theatrically. We know that Amazon is buying into that right now, and Apple is going to follow suit with full theatrical releases for their streaming movies. I think this, people are coming around to the truth that movies that are in the theaters and get that kind of marketing spend are just viewed with a higher, Q rating, I guess, than movies that go straight to streaming when it comes to the opinion of the average person. People care more about movies that were released in theaters. And not only that, but you have a chance to actually make some real tangible money from the box office before you put it on streaming, where the movie's ability to make money is a lot less clear and more nebulous. So I think Damon and Affleck understand that, and it seems like Amazon is on board with that now, which is great to hear, given how things have gone recently. So the business side of things is sound with this movie, rooting for it, of course. But let me know, how'd you feel about Air? And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.